directed that the closure of lands and air borders between Nigeria and Niger Republic, as well as ECOWAS no-fly zone on all commercial flights to and from Niger Republic be lifted immediately. On the interview segment for today, we shall be speaking with Dr. Tunji Alausa, the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, on President Tinubu's healthcare agenda. Welcome to Politics Tonight, everyone. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now let's begin with some developments in the polity. President Bola Tinubu has directed the opening of Nigeria's land and air borders with the Republic of Niger and the lifting of other sanctions against the country with immediate effect. This directive on the restoration of territorial relations is in compliance with the decisions of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government at its extraordinary summit last month in Abuja, when ECOWAS leaders agreed to lift economic sanctions against the Republic of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. According to a statement issued by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, President Tinubu also directed that the suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between Nigeria and Niger be lifted immediately. President Tinubu also approved the lifting of financial and economic sanctions against the Republic of Guinea. Governor of Ondo State, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, has officially declared his intention to run for the 2024 governorship election in the state on the platform of the All Progressives Congress. At events in Akure, Governor Aiyedatiwa said he will accelerate economic growth in the state by encouraging private enterprises and economic activities if elected. Aiyedatiwa has details.
2.5 months after he assumed office, following the death of former Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa has declared intention to run for the 2024 governorship election in Ondo State on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, APC. In their goodwill messages, party leaders, including former lawmaker Senator Ajayi Borofis, a member of the House of Representatives Abiola Makinde, the Speaker of the State House of Assembly Olamide Oladije, among others, stressed the need for the people to support Governor Aiyedatiwa.
Here with us here, we have about 18 members of Ondo State House of Assembly. In Ondo State House of Assembly, within us, we have agreed that we are going to support Honorable Lucky Orimisa Aiyedatiwa.
We are lucky because the gentleman that God has called at such a time as this, he has called him to continue what his former boss has started.
While declaring his intention to run for the governorship election, Governor Aiyedatiwa offered himself for selfless services to the people of the state.
I am confident that prosperity will be proud of all of you. Today, I have come before you in response to the popular yearnings and aspirations of our people to sustain this path of progress and development in the state.
The governor, who promised to bring rapid development to the state, expressed optimism that he will come out victorious at the party's primary election.
I have come before you in response to the popular yearnings and aspirations of our people to sustain this path of progress and development in the state.
As his name suggests, Governor Aiyedatiwa expects to be lucky again by beating other aspirants to clinch the APC ticket with the support of the people and God's backing. Aiyedatiwa, TVC News, Akure.
Director General World Trade Organization Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has stressed the need to assist Nigerian farmers in producing yields that would have seamless market access overseas. She also called for an urgent need for diversification. Ademola Lawrence has details.
In furtherance of the 8-point agenda of President Bola Tinubu, the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, in collaboration with World Trade Organization and International Trade Center, launched transformative initiative which holds significant potential in the development of Nigeria's trade and industrial landscape, especially at this economic downturn. This is the major focus of the launch here in Abuja. As Africa's most populous country, Nigeria has regional and global significance, including for the Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union Agenda 2063. For the DGWTO, some of Nigeria's unrealized potential has to do with trade-related problems on the supply side, and that is what this project is seeking to rectify.
Obtaining international safety certification opened the door to exports to the US, the UK, Europe, the Middle East and South Africa, as well as more sales in market niches within Nigeria.
This center will leverage world-class technology such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and big data to provide Nigeria with the ability to predict global market trends that will enhance our local and global trading capacities.
The Ministry of Trade and Investment and the Nigerian government is confident that the programs will yield good economic results.
I am confident that the programs that will be implemented today through this facility will support our efforts towards ensuring the safety, integrity, and marketability of Nigerian goods and services, and complement our efforts towards addressing our food and livelihood security issues.
For the administration of President Bola Tinubu, the SGF and representative of the Vice President insist the government will continue to provide an enabling environment for the growth and development of the country.
By this administration to put in place robust and dynamic policies as well as legislations to actualize the objectives of the support we're receiving.
I want to emphasize that the comprehensive transformation we seek begins now.
This support program seeks to bridge a gap in the e-commerce ecosystem, as well as the challenges the e-commerce digital trade divide in Nigeria. Ademola Lawrence, TVC News, Abuja.
Let's take a short break, and when we return, it will be time to speak with Dr. Tunji Alausa, the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare. Please stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with Politics Tonight. And now to our interview with the guest of the day. I am joined by the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, Dr. Tunji Alausa, for discussion on President Tinubu's healthcare agenda. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Jumoke.
Right. I mean, it was just on Friday where we had a very interesting conversation with Professor Ali Pate. It was interesting to know what the federal government is doing to boost women's health at the primary and secondary levels, primary healthcare delivery, and so forth. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's begin tonight's conversation with availability of doctors. Nigeria has a doctor-to-population ratio of 1 doctor to 8,000. You would agree with me, Honorable Minister, that this figure is very low. What steps are you taking to bridge this gap?
Yeah, thank you, Jumoke. We're taking several steps to bridge the human resource for crisis or workforce shortage that we have in the country. You would have heard our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and at various fora, he spoke on the importance of why we need to quickly and in a very short time, in an aggressive manner, increase the number of healthcare workers in our country. And it's giving us a clear mandate to harness the huge population that we have to aggressively produce more healthcare workers in the country. Now, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're approaching this in a multifaceted way. The first is we are aggressively increasing production. We've increased the number of enrollments in all our medical specialties. for doctors, for dentists, for nurses, for pharmacists. With nurses, before we came in as a government, we were enrolling 28,000 students in our nursing school. Today, I'm happy to let you know, we're enrolling about 68,000 nurses in all our nursing schools across the country. By the end of this year, 2024, we will be enrolling at least 120,000 nurses in our nursing school. We know some of these healthcare workers will leave, but it's a free world, they can leave, but as we continue to produce more, we will be able to fill in the gap. Beyond increasing production, we're also looking at harnessing our diaspora population to come in and help us in the areas of training and also in areas of manpower. The other thing we're doing as a government is we know people, anybody that went into healthcare field, part of it, a significant part of it is they went in because of the altruism. They want to serve humanity. They want to care for patients. They want to care for the society. But then they still have to pay their bills. We know part of the driver of people moving out of the country is because of the way they're being remunerated in the country. But the president is addressing this in a manner that at the end of the day we will have sustainability. This problem will be solved once and for all, so that 10 years from now, we won't be in the same situation. The president has set up a committee to look at the remuneration and welfare package of our healthcare professionals, but not only our healthcare professionals, but the entire workers in the country. So, as I said, we're increasing production. We are also harnessing the resource of our diaspora, and we're also addressing the welfare package as well.
All right. In one of your recent tweets, according to you, your ministry's 4-point agenda for a better healthcare system relies heavily on regulation, consistency, and maintenance. And according to you, roughly 60% of our healthcare is delivered through the private sector, leaving 5 to 10% and 30% to be delivered by the federal and state governments, respectively. You've also said that a lack of consistent health facility regulation has left Nigerians to be preyed upon by ill-equipped, uncertified facilities and poorly qualified healthcare professionals who face no consequences for their actions. Now, as the Minister of State for Health, what are you doing to address this?
Yeah, thank you so much. We're directly and frontally going to address the lack of regulation in our healthcare sector. But before I address that, let me talk to you about our 4-point agenda. When we came in as the Superintendent Ministers at the Ministry of Health, we came in with clear 4-point agenda, which ties into our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu renewed hope agenda. The first pillar of agenda is improving governance in our healthcare system. Governance in the way we regulate the healthcare sector. Also the way we talk to patients, the way we treat ourselves as physicians, as healthcare providers. The second pillar is on improving our population outcomes. The third pillar is unlocking the value chain of our healthcare system, where health will move from a consuming part of the economy to be a growth driver of the economy, where our healthcare sector can now continue to contribute to our GDP. What we have today in Nigeria, healthcare sector as a contributor to our GDP is just about 5%. We want year over year to move our healthcare sector as a contributor to our GDP to about 15 to 20%. If you see what exists in other developed nations, United States, for example, healthcare sector contributes about 24.5% of American GDP. That translates into about $3.3 trillion in annual spend. We want healthcare to be a major producer to be a major generator of jobs, employment for our young men and women in the country who are very well trained and who are eager to work. Then our fourth pillar is, of course, looking at healthcare beyond physical security, but more as well as social, as part of our social security and national security. Like you rightly said, 60% of the care that is being delivered in our country today, it's by the private sector. And you would have heard some not too good news that
that's happened in the last several weeks, where kidneys of young citizens of the country were illegally harvested and sold to people in our country. Also, we have people who are not certified, who are not physicians, a nurse anesthetist in Kaduna State performing cesarean section. These two examples are just a fraction of what happened today in our healthcare. Now, if 60% of this of the care delivered in a country is by the private sector is not being regulated. The hospitals, the lab, the radiologist centers, everything not being regulated. Once we came in as a government, we quickly moved in to set up the Standard and Compliance Committee to regulate our federal tertiary hospitals. But then, a federal tertiary hospital is just a small part of the healthcare facilities in the country. Now, what we're proposing is that we will be setting up a national facility health regulatory commission. We'll be going to FEC, and we're hoping that the president will give us approval to set up this. This will be this will be backed up with the legislation, where this regulatory commission will now begin to regulate all the hospitals, all diagnostic centers, laboratories, everything that touches patient in the country will be well regulated. We know healthcare is on the concurrent list. The state governments, actually, based on the 2014 National Health Act, state government should actually be the one setting up this health facility regulatory commission. But then we know our governors, and they're barraged with a lot of things, cash, money. They don't have enough money to meet all the needs of what they have to provide to their citizens. So what we're proposing to our state governors that the federal government will take over this, and into the future, as the states get to a point where they can now begin to set up their own facility regulatory commission, and once they're able to meet certain criteria, certain benchmark, we will hand over and step aside. But we cannot wait till the time when the state government will set up their facility regulatory commission. We've started. I met with all the Council of Commissioners. It was overwhelming in their support to have this commission. They said we need this commission like yesterday, and we're moving quickly to set up a national health facility regulatory commission that will begin to quickly regulate the health care that is being delivered in our country, so that we can begin to benchmark our own regulation to what is applicable in any civilized society like ours.
All right. So when you say that this 4-point agenda for a better healthcare system relies heavily on regulation, consistency, and maintenance, when you talk about maintenance, is this about maintaining health infrastructure across the country?
Beyond maintenance, we are, if you look at, let's separate this out. Regulatory is different to improving our healthcare system. I will talk a little bit about the regulation and then move quickly to improving our healthcare infrastructure. Regulation is purely to hold ourselves accountable, all the healthcare providers accountable, all the facilities accountable, ensure they are meeting basic standard in the way they care for our citizens. Today, anybody can just open a hospital without any checklist. And once they open the hospital, nobody gets there to say, do you have a lab? Do you have an X-ray? Do you have an ultrasound? If you have this medical diagnostic equipment, do you have a service level agreement? Are you doing the usual calibration so that you're actually giving the right result to patient? Because there's been instances where today there are several labs, hundreds of labs in the country, results are still being manually written. Lab results are still being manually written. This is criminal. It shouldn't be happening in a civilized society like us. And that's what you get when there's no regulation. But as a government, you've heard a president said on several occasions, what this government is going to do, what the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing, is to look at a problem, look at it, provide solution, so that the robust solution to fix the problem in such a way that into the future, so that we'll have sustainable healthcare system into the future. As you know, healthy population is the core to harnessing our biggest asset in the country. And our biggest asset in Nigeria today is our human capital. And I know I've talked a little bit about regulation. Let me talk. If you want to jump in, I can stop. But if you allow me 2 more minutes, I'll talk about what we're doing in improving our healthcare infrastructure.
All right, please
if you see this 2020, okay, go ahead.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
I can hear you.
Yes, please go ahead, doctor. Please go ahead.
Okay, I should go ahead. Thank you so much, Jumoke. If you see this 2024 budget, this 2024 budget, we have the highest amount of money allocated to healthcare ever in the country, and we thank our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this gesture. And this money will be spent to improve our healthcare infrastructure, equip our hospital with modern equipment, hire more professionals, trained professionals in our hospitals, so that we can begin to improve on where we start from, delivering better and comprehensive healthcare. That's what every citizen of Nigeria deserves: meaningful and comprehensive healthcare. And as I said earlier, beyond improving infrastructures in our hospital, beyond modernizing our hospital with state-of-the-art equipment, we're also looking at improving welfare packages for our healthcare professionals in the country.
Right. So you just inaugurated the National Health Research Committee. How does this facilitate collaborations across various health disciplines and institutions in the country?
Okay, thank you. As I told you about the 4-pillar agenda earlier, we also have cross-enablers of a 4-pillar agenda. Digitalization is a big part of that. Also, research is a big part of that. We've moved quickly as we're moving along to overhauling, rejigging, and resetting and redeveloping the healthcare system in our country. We're doing it with full bets high. We're not leaving anything behind. So that at the end of the day, we'll have a comprehensive, robust healthcare system that will meet international standard. Research is a bedrock of healthcare system. If you don't have research, you can't have a sustainable healthcare system. And that's why we've moved as a government to quickly set up the National Health Research Commission, National Health Research Committee, which was set up on the 4th of January this year. We have accomplished Nigerians in all areas, in all walks of life. People in diaspora, people locally that have excelled in academia and have excelled in grant writing and putting research, comprehensive various research together. So we set up that committee. They've been empowered to help redevelop our research landscape, our research ecosystem in the country by putting resource together where all research grant in Nigeria, in the Western world will be available in a database, so that researchers in Nigeria can go in, see what research interests they want to get involved. This committee is also going to be working to setting up grant writing workshop to help train our researchers on how to write grant proposals, so that they can, when they write this proposal, they're able to get this research grant. And as we do this, we would now start bringing research dollars into the country. People want to do research. It's just before we came in as a government, there's been a lot of bottleneck in people coming in, international researchers coming in to do research in our country. You know, we have a population of 220 million people. A lot of this research in a drug, in pharmaceuticals, we also use those drugs. It's better those researches are done on our citizens as well, because we are also eventual users of those drugs. Beyond setting up the National Health Research Committee, we've also moved quickly to set up the National Health Research Ethics Committee. The Ethics Committee is involved in giving approval 4 clinical trials for drugs that that NAFDAC have been, international pharmaceutical companies have reached out to NAFDAC and have reached out to several of other pharmaceutical companies in the country to do clinical trials here. But without a national research ethics committee, you cannot do research in the country. So we see that gap. We saw that gap, and we've set up that committee as well. We're just in Addis Ababa. We met with one big organization that wants to start setting up clinical trial sites in our country. As they set up this clinical trial site, we get to a point that we're now incubator where big pharmaceutical research can come into the country. And as this come in, this a lot of money that will come with this, hundreds of millions of dollars will come in to our country. Then once we get to this point, we can now begin to offer opportunities to our young Nigerians, young researchers, and begin to build, to also unleash the capacity of our professors in academia that they want to do research, but the support has not been there. This government is going to give them all the support needed, all the opportunities needed, and all the resources they need to unleash their potential. What we're also doing in the area of research, we're starting postdoctoral research fellow at the National Institute of Medical Research and the National Institute of Pharmaceutical and National Institute of Pharmaceutical and Drug Research. Those two institutes, they've been mandated to start to recruit for the first year about 200 postdoctoral fellows. We're into a 4-year program. As we do this, as we get more research into our country, more grants coming into our country, we're now creating a situation where we now have feeders, researchers that will feed into all these grants, into all this research that will be coming to our country, so that 5, 10, 20 years from now, we would have built a complete ecosystem of researchers where we can actually now have original research being done in our country as well.
That was quite elaborate, because I was going to take you up on what the ministry is doing to fortify our Nigerian pharmaceutical scientists and medical research in general, because we saw how countries swung into action when COVID-19 was here with us. So let's go on. Since we're talking about research and policies, speak to us about the collaboration between the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development and the Department of Traditional and Complementary Medicine. There are those who strongly believe that you cannot undermine the role traditional medicine play, especially in the area of research. So what's the ministry doing to strengthen this collaboration?
Very good. In fact, the good thing, both two departments that you mentioned are domiciled under the Ministry of Health, the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and the complementary and alternative medicine. We know most drugs historically were developed from herbs, but because of new technology, because of the modern technology, we don't use herbs again to develop our drugs. There are a lot of biologicals, genetics in the way drugs are being developed. But our traditional medicine, they're still they're potent. They will have some traditional medicines traditional herbal medications that are potent. So what we've mandated National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development to do is to now we've mandated them to collaborate with the Department of Complementary and Alternative Medicine in our ministry, for them to start working together, to start sharing data, so that the Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development can help test the potency of some of our herbal medication, and then if we find them to be potent, they can now begin to do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, where some of this can now be brought to the market. This is a way to also build our indigenous capacity. We know our herbal medications work, and millions of people today in Nigeria use herbal medication. So it's incumbent on us to ensure that these medications that they're using is tested, is safe, and is free of adverse health effects on a citizen. So the Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development and a Department of Complementary and Alternative Medicine are now working collaboratively together to develop a local herbal resources.
All right. Honorable Minister, let's talk about a more terrifying situation. I mean, major drugs are no longer affordable to most Nigerians. The prices of antibiotics and analgesics have gone up by 400 to 500%. What are you doing about this to avoid increased morbidity and mortality?
Could you, Jumoke, could you please repeat your question?
I want us to talk about a more terrifying situation, and that's a drug crisis in Nigeria. As we speak, most Nigerians cannot afford the prices of drugs in the market any longer. I mean, if you look at the prices of antibiotics and analgesics, they've gone up by 400 to 500%. What are you doing to address this?
Yeah, we're doing a lot to address it. First of all, I feel for Nigerians, the high prices of drugs and medical consumable, it's as a result of several things. The easy culprit that people will point to is that the fluctuating exchange rate. But that's not what it is, really. That's not the main contributor to the problem we're having today. What happened historically, decades ago, we've allowed multinational companies, even local companies, to come in. They continue to import and import year over year. If you go to other countries, even go to Algeria there in North Africa, once you start importing into a drug or you've gotten license to import pharmaceuticals into Algeria, after 5 years, you have to domesticate production of what you're importing into the country. But we've let pharmaceutical companies just play by their own rules without regulation. So over the years, we've just continued to import and import and import. Now, we're addressing this, as I told you, this President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has mandated us to fix this problem, not just for now, but into the future, decades from now, so that people that will come after us will not be in this bad situation again. One of the things we're doing, we're reviewing a pharmaceutical law. We're setting up a committee in the next 4 weeks, in the next 3 weeks, to have a comprehensive review. We will migrate to a point that our multinational companies, local pharmaceutical companies that are importing, after 3 years, they have to domesticate the manufacturing of their drugs in the country. That's one thing. The other thing about this, of course, that's medium to long-term plan. We all have to, Nigerians need immediate succor to this. That's what matters to them. And the president has been so disturbed about these high prices of pharmaceutical medication and medical consumable in our country. The president is not happy about it. Several weeks ago, the president mandated us, as the Ministry of Health, together with the Attorney General Office, Attorney General of the Federation, and the Minister of Trade and Investment, to come up with executive order on how we can immediately remedy these high prices of pharmaceuticals and medical consumable. The executive order has almost been finished now. It will get to the president's desk probably in 1 or 2 weeks. Also, in our next FEC, my Honorable Minister for Trade and Investment and myself and Honorable Mr. Pate, we finalized the backward integration plan to support our medical device company as well, to support our medical device industry in the country. That will be going to FEC probably in the next few weeks. So we have short-term, medium-term, and long-term solution. The president has mandated us to aggressively work to bringing down the prices of pharmaceuticals and medical consumable in this country, so that the citizens of Nigeria can breathe. And also, as we continue to do this, we're also going to have to look at building local capacity. If we had those local capacity in the first instance, we won't be where we are now. A fluctuation exchange rate will not directly lead to immediate rise in drug prices or medical consumable prices. But the way we're fixing this problem, we're doing it bottom up so that into the future, this will be, we're putting long-lasting solution to this problem, and we won't be in this situation again ever in the history of our country. I apologize to Nigerians on behalf of the government for the suffering they're facing with this high price of pharmaceuticals and medical consumables, but please also trust us as a government. We're working assiduously to get sustainable solution to this problem. We have to fix this problem once and for all, not just palliating it or just fixing it on a superficial level.
All right. Honorable Minister, let's go on a break, and when we come back, we'll talk some more. You're watching Politics Tonight. We go on a break, and I'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. We've been speaking with Dr. Tunji Alausa, the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare. Tonight, we're discussing President Tinubu's healthcare agenda. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for staying with Politics Tonight. So, going by your attendance at the WHO's Malaria Ministerial Conference in Yaoundé in Cameroon, with the theme tackling malaria in countries hit by the disease, what is Nigeria's malaria plan?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad you followed that, my attendance at the Cameroon Malaria Conference. Let me tell you, today, we've had a malaria program in Nigeria since 1948. This is almost 70-something years after. Nigeria has 30% of the world burden of malaria, the highest in the world. It's not acceptable to us as a country. What we've been doing is just maintaining malaria. We have to put a plan together on how we can begin to eliminate malaria. Our foreign partners, our development partners have been quite supportive of us, but we have to take the bull by the horn. This is our country. We're a sovereign nation. We need to make investment. We need to mobilize, we need to do domestic resource mobilization to eliminate malaria. What we have support from our development partners. We thank them for that. We're thankful to that. But then, the way things are being done, buying commodities, mosquito net, that's not a comprehensive part to eliminate malaria. So I went to that conference in Yaoundé, Cameroon. It was a conference put together by World Health Organization for the 11 countries in Africa that have the highest burden of malaria. So we sat down, put plans together on what we need to do to eliminate malaria. The one thing that resonated all through that meeting was countries need to make investment in malaria elimination. We cannot depend on our development partners to eliminate malaria for us. There are several things we're going to be doing, and now we've hired a world-class expert on malaria elimination that will be starting, that we've engaged as special advisor to the federal government of Nigeria, who will lead a malaria elimination program. We need a central coordinator to coordinate what's happening in all our states. We can't say we're beginning to eliminate malaria where in one state in the country we have a malaria prevalence of 2%, and in another state in our country we have a malaria prevalence of 53%, the highest in the world. We're one country, we're one nation. So somebody as the Federal Minister of Health now needs to start looking at all programs, make sure things are aligned, coordinated. We will invest a lot of our own resources going forward into our malaria elimination program. We will do larval source management beyond mosquito net, beyond indoor residual spray, and we bring it to use. There are also a lot of new technology coming up that we will use to help in a part to eliminating malaria. Countries have done it in Africa. Cape Verde just did it. Mauritius has done it as well. And one more country in Africa, they've eliminated malaria in the last few years. You go to our neighboring country, Senegal, their prevalence rate of malaria is less than 1%. Malaria it's a big cause of morbidity in our country. If you look at the morbidity, not looking at the morbidity alone, look at the economic loss from malaria. Look at the human losses from malaria. So we would now move in a path to eliminate malaria, not palliating malaria, not maintaining malaria. We will be working to eliminating malaria in our country.
All right, Honorable Minister. I mean, it's important to say that although a lot of gains have been recorded in HIV advocacy and awareness, there's still a lot more to be done. But also, there are other diseases like hepatitis, tuberculosis, etc. Now, what are your strategy on advocacy and increased prevention?
Good. You know, you look at it. The communicable diseases has taken a lot of has gotten a lot of attention years over year. But now, actually, it's the non-communicable diseases that are actually causing more morbidity and more mortality in our country. I'll come to what we're doing about that. But let me address your question about communicable disease. What are we doing with that? Reducing the level of HIV prevalence in our country. You know, the World Health Organization recommendation is 95, 95, 95. We are just about to meet that goal. So we now have a realignment. If you've seen, we now have we're realigning our resources to make sure that we'll continue to do things that will get us to the goal of 95, 95, 95 for HIV. With hepatitis, we're also building a hepatitis vaccine into our national vaccination program in the country. I know there has been outbreak of hepatitis in some of our states. Adult vaccination is also being encouraged. But as we now begin to immunize our children from birth, we will have reduction in our chronic level of hepatitis B infection into the future. Also, we're engaging a civil society organization for more education, so that they can continue to educate a citizen on what they need to do. Getting immunization, avoiding situations that can get them infected. So that's what we're doing about that. Going to our non-communicable diseases in the country, it's a burden that it's been rising: cardiovascular diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer. We are tackling this head-on as well. I told you earlier on, as we started this program, we're thankful to our president for this increase in budgetary allocation to health. We're investing this money into building, improving infrastructures, modernizing our equipment. That will help us to also manage our non-communicable disease. In the area of cancer, you heard the announcement a few weeks ago. The president has graciously approved 6 new cancer centers to be built in each of the 6 geopolitical zones in the country. Also, 12 new diagnostic centers will be built all across our country. Now, we're going to continue to mobilize more resources into our healthcare sector. And then I haven't talked about our sector-wide approach program, where we're now working more with our development partners. Before, things have been quite hyper-fragmented. What we're doing now is that we're coordinating better. We're going to align our resources better now in such a way that our development partners, they will pool with us. Some of them that are not going to pool with us would align where they're spending. Of course, we have a basic healthcare provision fund, which is 1% of the consolidated revenue fund. It's a statutory allocation. Now, 55% of the basic health provision fund goes into our primary healthcare centers. 45% goes into our national health insurance gateway and then 5% into the emergency gateway. So what we're doing now, as with a sector-wide approach programming, we're aligning resources with our development partners so that more funds can be directed to our primary health care centers. As this fund get directed to our primary health care centers, they'll have more money to hire more frontline workers, improve infrastructures in our primary health care centers, buy more medical consumable, buy more drugs in our primary care centers, so we can begin to deliver better and more comprehensive health care at our primary care level.
All right, Honorable Minister, I'm also very concerned about Lassa fever because as of February 11, 2024, that's just last month, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention said no fewer than 2,122 suspected cases, 411 were confirmed and 72 deaths. This confirmed cases were recorded from 21 states and 78 local government areas in the country.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. You know, it might be climate change and health. The pattern of Lassa fever is changed in the last several years in our country. Previously, we had a Lassa fever belt, but now it looks as if several areas that are out of our traditional Lassa fever belt are now seeing cases of Lassa fever. You know, Lassa fever is a zoonotic infection. Now, what we're doing, we're supporting our states very quickly in a robust manner. We're providing PPEs for them. We're providing medication, ribavirin for them to support, and we're also assisting them with early diagnosis. I was just talking to the director of the NCDC, Nigeria Center for Disease Control, yesterday. How we can also improve our public health emergency operation centers, where we can get our Lassa fever cases more reported in a quicker, and where we can now begin to have validated information of positive Lassa fever cases. But at the ministry, we're providing all support that our states need to Lassa fever. But beyond that, it comes back to what I told you earlier. It's what do we do? These are things that will happen, but how do we solve this problem into the future? We're talking about now using mRNA technology for vaccine manufacturing. One of our high points, our main focus is to engage in research on how we can develop mRNA vaccine for Lassa fever. So we're working. That's a long-term solution, but with the immediate solution, we have a high number of Lassa fever in the country today. But as a government, from the Ministry of Health, we're giving our state all the support that they need at this time.
All right, quickly before we go, let's talk about recreational centers. This has gradually disappeared from our communities. Exercise, mini sport complex were very prominent back then. Any plans in place to restore this culture across the country?
Yes. You spoke about recreational centers, right?
Absolutely.
That was your question. Yeah, okay, good. Of course, preventive is always better than actually treating. So that's why we will be engaging on educating our citizens on preventive measures. Exercise is an important part. As we are today, we don't have that many recreational center gyms across that people can go and beyond the public park. But then, as we move along building our healthcare system, that's going to be part of what we do. In other areas, you have health insurance plan paying for gym membership. We don't have that here, but those are some of the considerations that we're going to put on the table as once we get to overhauling our national health insurance program, where we can actually encourage the HMOs, even the National Health Insurance Authority, to provide support, to provide some form of support for gym membership. But I would encourage our citizens to engage in as much exercise, brisk walking, jogging, those are anything that increase your cardiovascular activity would help reduce your incidence of diabetes, incidence of high blood pressure, cardiovascular, incidence of high cholesterol, incidence of cardiovascular related disorders. So I'm using this platform to encourage Nigerians to do more exercise. Even if you don't go to the gym, just brisk walking, jogging on your street would suffice.
Honorable Minister, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we hope to have more updates from time to time so Nigerians can continue to know what the federal government is doing to keep us healthy. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been speaking with Dr. Tunji Alausa, the Minister of State for Health and Social Welfare, tonight to discuss President Tinubu's healthcare agenda. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you so much, Jumoke. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Good night, everyone.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia, January 15, 1929. The son of a Baptist minister, King received a doctorate degree in theology and in 1955 helped organize the first major protest of the African-American civil rights movement, the successful Montgomery bus boycott. King participated in and led marches for the right to vote, desegregation, labor rights, and other civil rights. He advocated civil disobedience and nonviolent opposition against segregation in the South, influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. The peaceful protests he led throughout the American South were often met with violence. Nonetheless, Dr. King and his supporters were persistent and the movement gained momentum. Dr. King was a powerful orator. He appealed to Christian and American ideals and won growing support from the federal government and Northern White. In 1963, Bayard Rustin and A. Philip Randolph led the massive march on Washington for jobs and freedom. The event's grand finale was King's famous I Have a Dream speech. 250,000 people gathered outside the Lincoln Memorial to hear the stirring speech. In 1964, the civil rights movement achieved two of its greatest successes: the ratification of the 24th Amendment, which abolished the poll tax, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibited racial discrimination in employment and education and outlawed racial segregation in public facilities. In the same year, King became the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize. In the late 1960s, King openly criticized U.S. involvement in Vietnam and turned his efforts to winning economic rights for poor Americans. He was a leader of the American Civil Rights Movement and organized a number of peaceful protests as head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, including the March on Washington in 1963. He was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teacher.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices were echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all their demands. A familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, North and South. Committee Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Everyone, and thanks for joining us today on the Art Express, the opportunity to express art in its entirety. I am your host, Tolokwe Lamidi. Today on the show,